guys, it's Adrian. Welcome to my September wrap-up. This month's wrap-up includes both Sequel September and Contemporaryathon, and I didn't do so bad if I do say so myself. I think I read a total of 9 books this month, and while that number is quite high, most of these were audio, or at least partially audio, because I did not have a whole lot of time to read. But I am proud of myself for keep going with the audiobooks at least, and when I get too overwhelmed to actually finish reading the book, I listened to it on audio, so I kept going, and that was important for me. First book I read was How to Train Your Dragon by Cassandra Cowell. This one we listened to on audio with my entire family, and it was fantastic. I gave this one 4 stars. This one, if you are familiar with the movie, it's nothing like the movie. This one follows Hiccup Horrendous, and he is the sort of awkward misfit of the hairy hooligan Vikings tribe, and he finds this little dragon, this little common dragon, this little puny nothing dragon named Toothless. And Toothless is a very stubborn dragon, and it follows Hiccup and Toothless and his best friend Fishlegs adventures in saving the hairy hooligan tribe. I really like this one. It was a perfect combination of sarcasm and humor and adventure and action, and I'm not a huge fan of children/middle grade books. I find them often disappointing, but this one was so good. We loved it, all of us. We listened to it, like I said, on audio. We do that a lot in the car or while we're eating dinner. Anyway, this one got a 4 stars. I really recommend it if you're looking for children/middle grade books. This is a series that I don't own, I borrowed, and I plan on getting it for myself because I want to save it for my kids when they grow up, or my grandkids or whatever. It's just one of those really great children's series that is clean, that is funny, and that it's just a good time. Next up was The Forgetting by Shannon Cameron. I'm working my way through the books that have been on my shelves for the longest, and this was one of them. This one is your typical dystopian/sci-fi book. I gave this one 3.5 stars. I wasn't a huge fan of this one, but it wasn't a bad book. I'm just not I don't like dystopian books. That's just my thing. But regardless, I think for what this was, it was pretty good. This one takes place in a town where every 12 years, everyone forgets everything that they know. They have to write down their memories in a book so that they can sort of get an idea of who they are after the forgetting happens. Except Nadia. Nadia is the only one that she knows of that doesn't forget. And so she's trying to hide this about herself because she doesn't want to get into any trouble. And she comes across a man named Gray, and her and Gray find out some stuff about what's going on in this town. This reminded me a lot of Wayward Pines. I think I mentioned this in my If You Like This and You Like This video. I liked Pines. I liked this one well enough. I will be continuing on with the series, but like I said, it wasn't like mind-blowing. It was your typical dystopian/sci-fi. It was okay. It was good. Not a terrible read, not an awful read. Those 2 books were sort of books that I had going in August and I finished up in September. Then I finally was able to start off with some sequels, and I started off with a great one, and that was In an Absent Dream by Shauna Maguire. This is the 4th book to the Every Heart a Doorway series. I think that this one was one of my favorites. This one follows Lundy. If you've read any of the books, Lundy we see right off from the beginning in the first book, and she's this childlike therapist. And it follows her through this whole land of logic and reason, and everything has a price where equal value is very great importance. I thought this was really interesting, a really interesting world, and really sort of consequential. There is indeed a price for everything, and she finds this out throughout the story. I really enjoyed this one. If you read Every Heart a Doorway and you didn't like it, I would suggest you continue on with the series, because I didn't like Every Heart a Doorway, and I actually DNF'd the series until last Sequel September when I saw them on audio and figured I'd give them a try because they were just a couple hours, and I actually fell in love with the series, and I'm regretting that I gave away my Every Heart a Doorway book. So I really recommend it. I gave it a 5 stars. Next up is another series that I have had on my shelf for a while, so I figured I would pick it up and then continue on with the series during Sequel September, and that was The Winner's Curse by Marie Rakowski. I don't really know what to say about this one. Some people really love it, some people really don't like it. Again, I fell somewhere in the middle. This one takes place in a society where the Valorian Empire has conquered the Hermione Empire, and they've made them their slaves. And it follows Kestrel, who is the general's daughter, the one who did the conquering, and Aaron is one of the slaves. Kestrel and Aaron have this weird relationship, and they find each other sort of hating and yet attracted to each other. Kestrel is being conflicted with the rules and the principles that she's been taught, and Aaron isn't entirely what he seems. So it follows their journey. This is a sort of romance book with a bit of fantasy in it, but it's not heavy romance. I didn't find it to be heavy romance. Again, middle of the road, another 3-star read. I did continue on with the series. It was really tough to get into at first. Towards the end of the book, I found it to be more interesting, so it was a slow start. But again, not bad, not great. I feel like I have a lot of 3-star reads this month. I didn't feel like a wonderful reading month. Next up, I picked up The Binding Knife. This is the second book to the Lightbringer series. I do have a spoiler-free speed review for the first book, The Black Prism. I will leave that for you up here and in the description box so you can go check that out. This one is better, but not. The problem with this one, I listened to this on audiobook, and the audiobook was so boring. So I have a hard time reading it because I feel like maybe if I had read it myself, I would have enjoyed it a little bit better. It didn't really pick up for me until about maybe 2/3 of the way through. I can't tell you a whole lot about it because it is the second book to the series, but it does pick up right after the first book left off. We get a little bit more character development, and we are more in this magical school than we were in the first book, which was quite interesting. One of my issues that I had in the first book was I felt like there was a lot of fat shaming in the first book, and it definitely was a lot less in the second book, but it was still there. But it did get better, so I will be continuing on with the series. This one was my sort of deciding book whether or not I would, because it was just so irritating in the first book. Again, go check out my spoiler-free speed review if you want to know more about it. This one again was a 3.5 stars. Again, sort of middle of the road. I keep feeling like this is going to be the theme of my month. Then I read The Winter's Crime by Marie Rudkowski. This is book number 2. This one was not as good as the first one. This one had some serious pacing issues, and it seemed really slow at times. And then I would think, oh, this is getting really great, and then it would get really slow again. I only gave this one a 2.75, but at this point I'm 2 books in, so I may as well just go ahead and read the last one. And then finally another 5-star book, thank the Lord Almighty, because this is getting depressing. We read How to Be a Pirate by Cressida Cowell. This is the second book to the How to Train Your Dragon series. This one was a 5-star one. I really enjoyed this one. Again, same reasons as the first book. I really do recommend the series. Can't really talk a whole lot about this one, but it continues the adventures of Hiccup Parenthus, and this time he's learning tricks about how to be a pirate, and of course things go horribly wrong, and Hiccup is Hiccup. Then we started the books that I read for Contemporaryathon. I only got to do 2 books in the entire week, which was very frustrating, but last week was really busy for me at work. I had hoped to be able to get so many more books done, but alas, it is what it is. But I did participate, and that is saying something because I haven't participated in any readathons whatsoever. I would have loved to be more active, but it is what it is. The first book that I read was The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. This one follows Olive and Ethan, and Olive's twin sister Amy has gotten married, but unfortunately during her wedding everybody got food poisoning except for Olive and Amy's husband's brother Ethan. Olive's sister Amy has won a free honeymoon, and if she does not go then she loses and has to pay for it. So Olive and Ethan are encouraged to take this honeymoon in Maui, and although Olive and Ethan really hate each other, they decided to do this, and it follows this sort of hate to love romance, and it was okay. I feel like everybody in book 2 is raving about this book, which made me go in with really high expectations. Don't get me wrong, I did enjoy this book. I gave it 4 stars. It was pretty good, but it wasn't like over the moon, top, blow my mind, best romance I've ever read. It was just good. It was good. I liked it. It wasn't bad. It was better than a 3-star rate as all my other books, but it wasn't as great as I had hoped. So I sort of don't understand the hype, and I was tempted to give it a lower star rating just because I didn't understand the hype, but I did like it, so fair is fair. And the last book that I read in the month of September was a very disappointing read, and that was The Last Lecture by Randy Pouch. I got this from my mom from the summer. I think I talked about this in my summer book haul. She really loved this book, and a lot of people really do. Here's the thing. I thought this was contemporary. It's not a contemporary, it's nonfiction. This follows Randy, who has given a last lecture. He was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and he wanted to impart these last thoughts to his students. And this book sort of follows up that. It was more written for his children to have something to read about when they get older. Because this is written by a man who was dying and has since passed away, I feel like I should give this a high rating because I feel disrespectful. But this book, to be honest, was really boring. I found myself just sort of skimming pages and reading it as fast as I could just so I could say that I read it, to show this guy some respect. but I did not like it. I gave this one a 1.75 and I feel like that's being very lenient. So this is one of the worst books that I read this year and I feel so bad. I feel like an ignorant jerk. But I didn't like it. There is another autobiography written by his wife Jay several years later that deals with loss that I would like to read because I am planning on doing a grief books recommendation video. So I'm interested in the life of the family and how they dealt with the situation. But this one it wasn't good and I feel terrible. Those are all the books that I read in the month of September. I am in the middle of a couple other books, but I will handle those in my October TBR, so keep your eyes out for that. If you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up. If you have not yet, I would love for you to subscribe. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye!